y'all, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I wanted to kick off a kind of new playlist on my channel that's walking you through how to build the most perfect makeup base that you can experiment with any type of eye look, blush look. But I essentially want to walk you through every step of the makeup process, split into different videos so you can watch the video on foundation, the video on concealer, highlight, contour, whatever it is, but to kind of make your makeup application the best that it can be. And I do want to disclose, this is just my opinion. These are products and techniques that I use on myself, I've used on clients, and that I've had really good success with. Makeup is not one size fits all. You kind of have to play, or think of the old example, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince. You've just got to kind of play with makeup to find what works for you and what meets your concerns in your makeup routine. So without any further rambling, let's jump into the video. Make sure you've done your skin prep, which is your skin care. So for me, I've applied my moisturizer, I've got my sunscreen on, and I've given it about half an hour to set in. And you want to give your skin time to absorb the moisture from the products. Let your sunscreen filter set up, because if it's too soon after, you can move around those products, you can cause skip areas in sunscreen. And when a product is too damp or tacky on the skin, that's when your foundation products and concealer and stuff like that, it can ball up and it can peel and it can just not look as good as you want it to. So instead of skipping your skincare, just give it a little bit longer, and you can blot away, which is what I'm gonna do right now. So I take a tissue. You can separate the paws if you want to. I did that a lot, but since it's just me and I'm working on myself, I'm gonna take it, wrap it around a damp beauty sponge, and I'm just going to gently press over my skin, take it under my eyes, over my eyelids, across my forehead, and let's see what we get off. So tissues are nice because they're white, they turn clear when they get kind of oily, but you can see I got a little bit off, nothing crazy. And that's mostly because I've given my skin time to absorb what I'm putting on so I can have the best application possible. So primers are what we're going to talk about next. And my unpopular opinion is primers are not necessary. Primers should supplement your foundation and kind of boost its performance. So that's why, like, when I do my foundation testing, the first day I test a new kind of foundation product, I never wear a primer under it, because I don't use a primer in my day-to-day life unless I was like, I'm going to be at work for a long time and I want to make something last longer. I want my pores look smoother. I want to have a more luminous finish. Primers are there to adjust and kind of boost whatever your foundation is lacking or what you want to change about it. So for adding a luminous base to your skin, I really like MAC Strobe Cream. It comes in a few different colors, so find a color that you like, or just find any type of priming product that has a little bit of a luminosity, because when you put your foundation on, the luminosity from your primer is going to show through and kind of just make your overall finish slightly more luminous and glowy, which is really nice, especially if you've got dry skin or you've got more mature skin that doesn't have the same kind of youthful glow that it did when you were younger. It's just really, really good for adding that luminosity to create a more kind of fresh and hydrated look to the skin. So if you have like enlarged pores, or you maybe have fine lines that you want to look a little, you want to minimize it. So any type of like depressions, so like sunken areas like pores, fine lines, things that you just want to look smoother. I really like pore smoothing products, and my current favorite is the Beauty Blender, the Leveler Primer. There's a lighter one, there's a darker one, so works for all skin tones, layers well under makeup. You can wear it on its own over your skincare just to make your skin look smoother. So if you want a smoother look to your skin, a pore filling primer like this, or There's tons of different primers. I'm just showing you a few that I have and I love. But these are really good for smoothing the look of your skin, so your finished product just looks smooth and kind of like airbrush perfection. And the one I'm going to use today is the Tatcha Liquid Silk Canvas. Mine still has a sticker because I have not finished off the mini sample size, so the bigger sizes are just easier to talk about because they're easier to see. But this is really nice because it gives you a little bit of a kind of smoothed appearance. So it slightly diminishes the look of fine lines, wrinkles, pores, and it gives your makeup something to stick to. So it's really good for extending the wear. This is just my current favorite one. Another one that does what this does, a little bit more expensive, is the Hourglass Veil Mineral Primer. Really good for smoothing the look of the skin. Sorry, there's a loud vehicle outside. And yeah, so it creates a slightly smoother appearance to the skin while extending the longevity of your makeup. And there's a lot of different primers on here. Primers are like foundations. You kind of play with them to find the one that gives your foundation what it needs. So I'm going to be using this one today. For that one, I'm going to be working with the mini size. I'm going to take about half a pump. I'm just going to kind of dot that on my cheeks, center my forehead, bridge my nose, whatever's left on my chin, and I'm going to spread it out. You don't need a lot because with these liquidy products, they spread a lot further than you might think. And when you have too much of a product on, it can also peel and create the effect that you don't want. So thin layers will get you the best result generally. There's some products where you need a thicker layer, but in general, I like to start with the thinnest layer I can to, one, create a more realistic effect, but two, to give your kind of makeup a longer possibility of lasting. That was hard to articulate. Foundations, I like to let the primer set on for a little bit. So let's talk about foundations. Foundation coverage is a very individual preference. Same thing with finish. What I consider to be full coverage, you might be consider to be a medium, or what I consider luminous, you might consider to be more of a natural finish. It's very personal preference. You gotta kind of play, try samples, find what works for you, and use reviews like mine or from another channel that you love. Find people that have similar preferences to you, that have similar skin types, so you can kind of navigate through shopping for a new product a little bit easier. So let's start off with what I consider to be a sheer coverage. Now, sheer coverage is going to almost add a little bit of a glow or a little bit of a mattification. So you're not going to really notice it changes the tone of your skin. It's not going to cover imperfections. It's going to give it a little bit of a luminosity and maybe just the teeniest tiny bit. So one of the ones I love that's very sheer is the Chanel Les Beiges. This is their water tint, and you can see, I'll show you on the back of my hand. It is a clear, runny liquid, and it's got these like little pearls of pigment suspended in it. So when I blend it out, my skin's pretty much the same color, but it has more of a sheen compared to the other side. So light coverage generally just gives your skin a different finish, and it might give you a tiny bit of tone correction, but not enough to really consider to be like a light coverage. So sheer coverages are better for changing the kind of finish of your skin. Coverage, light coverage, you'll notice it kind of, if you have areas of darkness or you have areas of redness, this will adjust those areas. Let me wipe off the back of my hand so I can give you a more accurate representation. So for light coverage, I like MAC Face and Body. This has recently been reformulated, repackaged. I know there's more colors, but it's a lightweight product that is quite runny. So a little bit on the back of my hand. So you can see the texture is a lot more viscous than the previous product. But as I kind of blend it out, you can still see my natural skin through it, but the tone has changed. So that is what I like to consider a light coverage. So I've neutralized some of the redness, I've changed the tone of it, but you can still see imperfections or natural skin texture through it. Medium coverage. And light to medium coverage is my personal preference when I'm working on myself or clients, because I can add concealer and I don't have to worry about creating an overly makeup-y look. So medium coverage, I like to think about if you were looking in the mirror at your face and you do one half your face, which I'll show you later, if there's about a 50% difference from the side with foundation on versus the side without, that's medium coverage. So it's not completely covered, but it's not tinted or lightly tinted. So that's why I like to consider about a medium. And one of my favorites for medium coverage is Armani Luminous Silk. Another watery formula. Like I said, I like to shake all formulas to kind of mix them and get them back to the best consistency of a product set they can separate. So you can go. See, it's got a slightly thicker texture than the previous two. And when I blend, you're seeing like the freckles on the back of my hand, they're being covered slightly. This color is a little bit lighter than my face, so it's not going to change the overall tone of my hand. But you can see there, it's taken the edge and kind of minimized the appearance of some of the freckles I have on the back of my hand. So that is why I like to consider a medium coverage. Fine, I only have 2 full coverage foundations in my collection right now. So they are both very similar. I do feel like the Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation with Cult Classic, it's more of a natural finish. It's gonna have full coverage. You can shear it out, and I can show you in a different video how to manipulate the coverage. Because for me, something that's full coverage, if I apply it all over my face, I can feel very too done. So I can show you how to make a full coverage foundation look more like a medium coverage and more skin-like. And the other one is the YSL All Hours. So you've seen me do a review on this on my channel, which I can link down below. But full coverage is going to cover pretty much 100% of your natural skin. So you can see there, that is definitely more of a thicker, creamier consistency. So when I apply this to the back of my hand, it's pretty much covered everything. Now, foundations tend to have less pigmentation than a concealer, so you're not going to get that same type of opacity. Now, there are foundations that are there where you can get concealer level coverage with just one product, but they tend to appear slightly heavy on the skin, so I don't have any of those in my collection because I'd rather use a concealer or a little bit more foundation to build up a product. To use today is a medium coverage, as I want to show you in our next video how to apply concealer. So I'm going to be using the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk, and I have shade 1.5, which, if a side note about this product and when you're looking for colors, just looking at this color online, I would have never purchased it because 1.5 is the lowest number in the collection. But if you look at swatches and swatch things in person, 1.5 is darker than shade 2 or 3, but it's lighter than 4. So colors, and that can happen with many brands like MAC Cosmetics. Like sometimes NCs have more of a yellow undertone, where an NW has more of a pinky red undertone. So pinks and reds tend to appear darker than yellows. So it's always good to try colors in store, because if you're buying online, you can mess up. And I've bought foundations offline. I'm like, that doesn't match. So what I like to do is take start with one pump of the product, apply it to the back of my hand, and pick up some with my finger and dot it on. And I've still got plenty on my face. You can see I've got coverage, and I'm gonna grab a brush. So today I'm gonna be using the BK Beauty 101 brush. So it's got a soft flexibility to it. It's movable. So this type of brush is gonna help me achieve kind of a light medium application. So the softer a brush, the more it's gonna kind of help kind of spread product. And I don't like to apply foundation under the eyes because I don't like to build layers. The more layers, the more texture you're gonna create. So I like to kind of minimize the amount of layers. So picking up from the back of my hand again and using the same brush, I'm just gonna kind of take those dots and spread them. And when you get closer to your hairline, I like to buff the product in. So that way you don't have a kind of stark stop and start. Okay. So you can kind of see here, this is a medium coverage, so my tone has changed. So my tone's now more yellow, which is in kind of line with my hands, but you can still see some like hyperpigmentation, some of that redness I had through here, it's taken the edge off. So that is what I like to consider a medium, and I'm happy with this level of coverage. You can build it up if you want to, but you can save that for your concealer. So I'm just taking whatever's left on the back of my hand, kind of placing it where I want it. I'm gonna use my brush, spread that around. And by kind of working the product and putting on the back of the hand, it's coming towards body temperature. So when it meets your facial skin, it's already kind of warmed up, so it's gonna spread a little bit easier. So now I can go back in. I'm only gonna take half a pump because I had less product to work with on this side. So I just wanna kind of even that out. And then I'm gonna take a little bit on my chin because my chin and my nose didn't get a ton of coverage. And I like to kind of start with my finger because then I can feel where I'm placing it. So I know everything's going where I want it to go. And I'm just using my brush to spread. And you'll notice I like to do a lot of these kind of stippling or bouncing motions. And what that does is it helps to kind of mesh your foundation product in with your skin. So you're kind of pressing it into the pores. You're making the textures become more synergistic. There you go. So I've got a pretty solid medium to light medium coverage on my entire face. I like to step back and step away from my mirror because when you're up close, you are gonna see more imperfections. You are gonna kind of eagle eye in on any spot. But when you step back and see your face from the kind of point of view that other people are, they'll be like, oh, I don't need as much as I thought I did. So you can continue to build your foundation until you're happy with the level of coverage. So before I go on with the concealer, I like to look at my skin and see where I want more coverage. Like I want a little bit more coverage through my forehead, but I don't want concealer level coverage. So I'm gonna take another little dot. So for me, this is about a quarter pump of that foundation. Pick some up with my fingers. I'm gonna dot it on my forehead there, and just a little bit kind of right here. And I'm gonna kind of bounce and press that foundation just into those areas where I want the extra coverage. There you go. That is an all-over application of foundation, and I like to stay in the habit of wiping off the back of my hand and my fingers so I don't get makeup prints everywhere. So let's talk a little bit about brushes, because I like to let this sit on my skin for a second, warm up, let what's gonna melt in, go ahead and melt in, and then I'll go back in with my next foundation step to take off any of that excess product. So the brush I used was the BK Beauty 101. So it has a little bit of a flatness to it, has a little bit of a density to it, but it still moves around. And as you drag the brush, it kind of flexes. So this is really good for getting that kind of intended level of coverage that you want. Now, when you get to something denser, so this is the IT Cosmetics Heavenly Luxe #7 brush, you can see it doesn't move as much. And when I press one side, the other side doesn't move because this is a denser brush. And same thing with this one on the other end. It's got a little bit more of a flexibility to it. But this type of brush is really good when you want to get the most coverage possible. So the denser the brush, the higher level of coverage you were gonna get. And then this is another brush. This is an It for Ulta Airbrush Buffing Foundation number 110. And there's really no movement. Even when I press on the side, it only moves right where I'm pressing because this is dense. So this is really good. So if you kind of bounce a product in with this, you were gonna get the most coverage. So remember, the denser the brush, the more coverage you're gonna get. Also use brushes like this to kind of wipe around edges, because this is gonna kind of help drag product out to where it's stiffer. And that's really good, especially around like areas that have hair. So like when you get to the hairline, you can buff around, buff over the eyebrows. But today I'm gonna use one of my other techniques that I prefer, which is using a slightly damp beauty sponge. And I just like to press over. So this is gonna, again, help press your foundation into your skin. And it's gonna lift off any of that excess product that is just sitting on top of your skin. You can even apply foundation with a sponge like this. But the sponge is going to kind of suck up a lot of the product. So you're going to get a very sheer application, which is great, especially using something like Estee Lauder Double Wear, where you want a lighter coverage out of something that's more full coverage. And with your kind of application using the sponge, take your time, press over an area, because what you're doing is you're really making that product meld into the skin. And when you're done, let me come in a little bit closer. You can see now where I've got coverage, but my skin still looks like skin, which is what I personally like in a foundation application. So that is going to wrap up this first section. So stay tuned. We're going to move on to concealer, and I will see you in that video. Bye, y'all.